of love and sorrow, Cyrus, our leader, has shown us our bunks. So that's where we are. You aren't in your room long before Cyrus shows up, this time accompanied by several other older cadets. Cyrus is holding a ruler, tapping it in his hand as he walks down the long hall. Beds are lined up on either side of the room, evenly spaced out down the row. Cyrus makes his way down the row, looking back and forth at all the nervous cadets, all of whom are trying to avoid drawing his attention. Do you guys see this? They've been in here how long now? They haven't even bothered to make their beds? Cyrus called out to the group of older cadets standing at the other end of the hall. The group laughs loudly. It's a damn shame, Cyrus. It shouldn't take them more than a minute to properly make a bed. You know you're right, Cyrus begins to methodically tap the ruler against the palm of his hand. You plebs have 1 minute to make your bed. Any longer than that, and you'll have to figure out some sort of appropriate punishment.
They don't want any carpetbaggers here. They don't even know how to make a bed, one of the other boys called out. This regiments the laughter, and even Cyrus smiles. None of your fellow cadets dare to move. Plebs, the time has started. Get moving. Cyrus whacks a couple of the nearest cadets with a ruler on their chest, and suddenly the room is in chaos. Everyone is desperately unfolding the nicely bundled blanket and sheet that was left on top of their bed and trying to quickly make their bed. Cyrus walks up and down, hitting random cadets with his ruler that aren't moving fast enough for not doing an adequate job or just because he feels like it. So time starts to wind down. The cadets at the end of the call begin loudly counting down until they hit 0, at which time Cyrus shouts to stop anyone who fails to quickly gets a hard swat with a ruler. Then he begins making his way down the line, finding fault with nearly everyone's bed. One he complains looks too perfect, before giving the cadet a particularly nasty rap on the hand. The cadet cries out, prompting mocking laughter from Cyrus's cohort. His second swat on the same spot by Cyrus for lacking toughness. He laughs at each cadet he hits. It seems to go on an agonizingly long time, and you hope he leaves before he comes around to you. He doesn't. Well, duh. He's gonna check them all.
This guy's being a dick.
Look here, everyone, is the great Sir Dandy Cadet. Tell us, Sir Dandy Cadet, how was your carriage ride in? He pokes his finger into your chest, and the other cadets laugh and hoot along. Did you meet your Prince Charming on the way? I'm sure a proper Southern belle like yourself must have all sorts of attention back home. You realize that taking the carriage in was perhaps not the best idea. Not because you didn't deserve it, of course, but you hadn't realized how petty and jealous these other older cadets would be. And what a sad state this bed is in. Tell me, have you ever made a bed yourself? Or did you have servants and slaves do that for you too? Be honest now, how can we tell if you're lying? The truth was you hadn't really. You could have.
God.
It certainly would have been hard to learn with a bit of practice. Menial labor never is. No, I haven't. No, I haven't, sir. The ruler hits your wrist hard, and the sharp pain jumps you your arm. Okay. No, I haven't, sir. You say it through clenched teeth. Go on, make it again, and this time do it right. We'll be here watching you. You're not very good at making your own bed over the next attempts. Jeb got his practice too once they were done with you.
Jumps you your arm.
Okay.
We'll roll with it. Later, you lay in bed, slowly rubbing your wrist. Other cadets complain about Cyrus, but you have other things on your mind.
Like how to make a bed?
Yeah. Like where your slave boy is.
To make your bed.
It's hard not to think about home, especially considering that your first day here, you always knew this would be hard, but perhaps you weren't quite prepared for all of this. You turn to Jeb, who has the bed next to you, but he is already asleep. If you listen carefully, you can hear his snoring. Sleep always comes easy to him, and it appears tonight is no exception. If the stress of the first day or the anxiety of being away from home weighed on his mind, he didn't show it. You wish you were able to fall asleep as quickly as Cyrus.
Where did...
What?
I think they mean Jeb. I think that was supposed to be a typo.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Jeez.
Okay.
You wish you were able.
Quality game right here.
Cyrus! Alright. You find your mind racing about home and about family, about Caroline, our sweet Southern Belle,
Who we left at home.
who we ditched. You wonder what she's doing right now, if she misses you too. Sleep doesn't come in easy, even when it does, only in spurts, as your mind can only find time to relax for a moment before it starts racing again. When the wake-up call comes in the morning, you feel groggy. Jeb looks well rested and jumps out of bed. You sigh and follow him.
Are we sure it's not Cyrus?
Yeah.
Breakfast is a fairly basic, but in a larger portion than you expected. After the food is finished and the plates are cleared away, Cyrus calls everyone to attention and asks you to follow him. He leads you to the parade grounds and instructs you to line up in orderly fashion. He assigns certain people to distribute rifles to everyone. You can tell from afar that the rifles aren't real. You've been around enough firearms to know the difference. Although these faux weapons make for a pretty convincing
Facsimile?
No idea. That's a weird word. Anyways. I don't trust you to handle a real rifle just yet, he calls out and grabs one of the wooden rifles for himself. So today we will use toys. You plebs will continue to play with your toys until you've proven to me you are qualified to handle a real weapon. He quickly brings the rifle up to his shoulder, chanting out a call when he does. From here, he moves to a prone position, flips it over, and slides it up to his other shoulder. All this appears to be done in one fluid motion. This is something he's done so often he could probably do it in his sleep. You are bit less convinced of your own prowess in the matter. Rifle drills. Gentlemen, today we will start with some easy rifle drills. This is the most basic move we will ever ask of you to do, so no one should have any trouble with it. Anyone that can't handle such a simple concept will be running laps until they do. Everyone understand that? Sir, yes, sir. Good. Now, again, watch me. He demonstrates with the rifle drill again and again, and each time a bit quicker, each time with a bit less instruction. After 4 or 5 times, he puts the rifle down. Your turn now. All at once. Attention. He begins calling out the orders just as he taught you. No one is quite as smooth as he was, but he's quick to point out even the slightest of errors. He moves up and down the rows before eventually coming to a stop in front of you. What about you, cadet? You have a hang of this simple rifle drill yet? Sir, yes, sir. You really don't have an option to say anything else, but you can tell from the look on his face he isn't going to accept a request for more time. Bring the rifle down to where the prone position is, and from there, you begin the drill as he showed you.
Facsimile. An exact copy, especially of written or printed material, noun, or the verb, make a copy of.
You try to remember back to how Cyrus did it, but with him right in front of you, your mind starts to race so you can't recall the details. Was it left shoulder? No, wait, maybe right shoulder? How is he standing again? Pleb, I said rifle drill. Now, it wasn't a suggestion. Swallow hard. Maybe if you're close, he won't notice. You bring the rifle up to your left shoulder, but as you go to move it, you lose your grasp on the rifle, and it falls to the ground. You quickly try to pick it up, but in your rush, you fail to secure the grip, and it slips from your hands again. This time, tumbling past Cyrus, some of the fellow cadets are laughing, but Cyrus is shaking his head without even a hint of humor. Well, you get points for failing with originality, I suppose. I've never seen someone hurl their rifle at their instructor before. He put his hands on his hips. I'm glad some of you find this funny, because I don't. Did you hear what some of those former cadets did during the last war? Never every single man who trained here was recognized for distinction. That's what you're supposed to become. And this one here can't even hold a damn rifle in his hands.
Damn.
Your face turns bright red. The other cadets have stopped laughing, but the silence is worse. Start running, pleb. Don't you dare stop until I tell you to.
Pleb.
Pleb.
Most of the rest of the afternoon is running. Cyrus
Yeah.
finds the smallest reason to make a cadet run, and after an hour or so, most people are sweating and visibly out of breath. After the final rifle drill is finished, he has anyone who is running stop and calls everyone to gather around him in the center of the field. Once he has everyone's attention, he begins to go into a speech about the importance of cohesion in the unit, about how you will find strength from each other and how you will only be as strong as your weakest member, so it is imperative you all look out for each other. You have to resist a urge to roll your eyes. It is fairly standard stuff, the kind of thing that you must have heard from your teachers and family as long as you can remember. But there is this earnest tender to Cyrus's words that make it almost intolerable to listen to. He somehow believes all of this, yet insists on tormenting all of you plebs all the same. You can't tell if you had a look in your eyes that betrayed your thoughts, but suddenly Cyrus stops mid-sentence to stare at you. He doesn't say anything for a moment, just long enough to let silence become uncomfortable. Who here is from the south? Raise your hand. He must already know the answer. You raise your hand along with other cadets and your brother. Who here keeps slaves? Several hands go down, but there are still many up. But instead, Cyrus is focused on you. I suppose you're a big supporter of state rights then, right? Of state rights then. You have a right to own a person, to separate them from their family and treat them like a piece of meat, to do your damn work for you. That's your right, I guess, Cyrus walks toward you, and as he's talking, and by the time he's done, he is less than a foot away from you. He's glaring down at you, awaiting your response. What do you say? You're a firm believer in states' rights and have been... You're a firm believer in states' rights as has been outlined in the Constitution. No one has the right to another's life.
Now, how do we want to make our man? We already know he's an uppity little dude from us making him take the carriage. But do we need to make him have a heart or be a piece of crap?
I mean, these people don't know you.
Yeah, I mean, for all we know, it's his dad that's the big states' rights and wants all the slaves, and our character could actually want people to know that he's genuine and doesn't want to own other people, be a slave owner.
What if he does, though?
Well, I don't know. Obviously, our brother's going to think the different of whatever we pick. I've already figured that out.
Yeah.
So, do we want our brother to be the jerk and the asshole, or do we want our character to be the jerk?
So, are we pro-slave that we've grown up with since we've been alive? Or...
are we a decent human being?
It's different times, alright? Alright. What should be?
I feel like it should be that one. Never.
Never. No one has the right to another's life. Your choice impacts the story. Oh shit. Several cadets give your answer an audible applause. Others, though, shake their head or mumble something under their breath. Your response appears to catch Cyrus off guard. He began to go on some sort of speech, but stops after a couple of words, and just tilts his head down at you. It takes a moment to regain his composure. Now, I knew you slave owners were cowards, but I had no idea you were liars too.
Oh my gosh.
He's not lying, Jeb speaks up. He's just dumb.
Oh, thanks, bro.
Always going on about slave rights. This isn't something new. You give Jeb a dirty look. You didn't need him standing up for you, and certainly not with his disgusting defense of slavery.
Called it.
Yep. His interjection seems to give Cyrus new life. Oh, so you're pro-slavery, aren't you? Oh, I'm sorry. Pro-state rights. Is how the cowards hide it, isn't it? From there he goes into what sounds like a pre-rehearsed speech. See, he just wants to piss people off. He hits all the right notes and is certainly passionate about the subject, something you always appreciate. He goes to the importance of the union and the dignity of every man. You've made many of these points to Jeb before, but he always looks stubbornly stuck in his ways and refused to give the issue any more thought than what your father told him. After the speech, he returned. After the speech, he has returned Jeb to. I can't
After
read.
the speech, he has Jeb run to make an example out of him. Almost immediately, several other cadets join him on their own as a show of support. It seems like half of the class is running by the end. You think Cyrus started this exercise as a way to unite the class, but you seem more divided than you ever anticipated. Yeah, that's a
Like
good way to
the
start
country.
some fights. Possibly as a result of the other students joining along within the punishment, Cyrus ends up cutting it off soon after he starts it. He clearly did not anticipate a show of solidarity like this and thought he could make a lone example, because when the cadets gather around him, he looks flustered and his usual empathetic, certain method of speaking is replaced with stutters and long pauses. The rest of the drills proceed as expected. Cyrus' confidence seems shaken, and he is no longer punishing as many cadets or as frequently as he did before. One cadet nearly hit Cyrus in the head with his rifle, but rather than forcing him to undergo some sort of physical punishment, he merely corrects him and moves on to the next cadet. The challenge to his authority so soon was clearly unexpected. No, he didn't expect that many slave owners to be in his group. So that's what it is. Half the class.
He's outnumbered.
After completing the last of the drills, Cyrus dismisses all of you and reminds you to consult with your schedules for individual training tomorrow. With that, Cyrus marches off, seemingly glad to be done for the day. All of your fellow cadets stand around and talk for a bit before heading off towards the dining hall for dinner.
Now, I will say that the first time I played it, I didn't ride the carriage. I walked. So, when I did that, you make some friends, and you actually talk to them more throughout.
I don't need friends. I have family. Well, apparently Jeb don't like us either anymore. The days begin to blend together days and turn into weeks, and a certain familiarity begins to seep into the proceedings. Perhaps most strangely, West Point begins to feel a bit like home. You no longer feel like an interloper intruding in some strange place that you don't really belong to. There's a sense of community here, of belonging, and unlike your first night's sleep, soon starts coming with regularity. Your mind is no longer preoccupied with thoughts of home. Your brother certainly helps, although you never admit it to him. Despite any sort of sibling rivalry or disagreement you may have with him being there with you, it always feels like home isn't too far away. The plantation may be far away, but a piece of home came with you. The training is difficult but rewarding. Training with Cyrus becomes more tolerable. He doesn't stop the hazing entirely, but it isn't as constant, and at least he appears to know what he is doing in the training sessions. Classes are more difficult. The instructors are somehow more intimidating than Cyrus. It isn't that they are unfriendly or unapproachable, but they all have this intensity brought on by years of experience. You never felt more like a child than in one of their lectures, and as they start to recount strategy and history, you at times feel like a child that decided to go play war. Training and study preoccupy your life.
Ooh. Life isn't without any downtime, however, and the nights are largely your own. Your mother sends both you and Jeb various packages from time to time. Both of you receive some new book every couple of weeks for you. For you, books on military strategy and general history. For your brother, general fiction. The two of you begin to look forward to these messages from home, and not just because of the contraband that typically comes with it. It is good to hear from your mother, even from your father, even if your father hasn't sent any letters yet. One night, as the two of you go through a package your mother sent you, you find that Caroline has included a message. The envelope is of a the envelope is of a markedly
different handwriting than your
Okay.
mother's typical scrawl.
markedly.
Her signature is always bordered on illegible, while Caroline takes time and care to everything she writes. The difference is noticeable immediately. The letter is addressed to you with only your name and a single underline on the outer envelope. Your brother picks it up, pursing his lips and raising his eyebrows in confusion. What's this? Picking up any secret admirers I don't know about? He smiles and gives you a nudge. He acts like as he was about to open up the letter, at which point you snatch it out of his hands. You have no idea what Caroline wrote in here, but anything vaguely romantic, and you're sure every other single cadet would know about it by the end of tomorrow. Your brother has never been good at keeping secrets after all. Jeb laughs and lays back on his bed, hands propped up behind his head. Don't worry, I was only fooling around anyway, so who's the letter from? You pause for a second and think back to your previous conversations with Jeb. Have you told Jeb about Caroline anyway, or did you hide some of the details about your relationship from him? Obviously he doesn't know. Jeb is in the dark.
So we're like going back.
We're thinking. Did we already tell
We're
him?
thinking, but I think it's a choice here.
It is a choice. Is it a choice that we actually talked to our brother, or is it a choice that we didn't? I don't think we didn't.
It's implementing that we have, and it's going to affect it. So you pause for a second. Did you hide some of the details?
Obviously, from what we have just learned, if Jeb did know, he would have already went and told everybody else. Well, hence by that whole vaguely anything romantic, you're sure every other cadet would know by the end of tomorrow. You would have already told everybody if you already knew, so we didn't tell them. So
he might not.
I think.
I mean, you just got a letter from her. So what? You've omitted details, and Jeb is largely in the dark. Is that what we're going with?
I mean, I don't see the point in why we need to tell him. Unless she's like.
He's your
pregnant.
brother.
I feel like he's fooled around with her if we say that one.
No, he's your brother, and that's your woman. You need to let him know.
He's gonna tell us that he fooled around with her. It's either he did fool around with her, or if we omit the details when we come back, he is gonna fool around with her because he doesn't know that that's our woman. And she's gonna get pregnant.
Let's say, we're gonna say yes.
I already feel like I know the answer, but yeah, okay.
Choice impacts the story. Wait, let me guess, your brother says before you can say anything. The lovely and beautiful Caroline, love of your life, sunshine of your world, and what other silly things you've been calling her lately. You laugh and nod your head. You, of course, have been very open with your brother about Caroline, who better to talk to about something like this. Jeb has had his fair share of romantic interests back home, although none of them were particularly serious. Your father always criticized him for leading these women on.
Jeb's a hoe.
Yeah. And how such behavior wasn't appropriate for a southern gentleman like himself. Your brother would always point out to you afterwards that no such behavior seemed appropriate for a southern gentleman, according to your father. Still, your brother always seemed happy for you and Caroline, or at least his version of happy. He teased you, but that was just his way of showing affection. It was when he stopped joking around with you that you had concern, that you were afraid
that he was a bit jealous.
Surely that was only your imagination.
It's because he wants Caroline. I already feel it.
He makes exaggerating kissing sounds and loudly proclaims that you have just received a letter from your sweetheart to all the other cadets sharing your room. The other boys laugh
and make some inappropriate
and some make
comments.
Inappropriate comments. But you ignore them and focus on the letter. It starts off normally enough with humor and wit shining through. It isn't long, though, before she becomes serious, talking frequently about missing you and wishing you would have come back home. Reading her words, you feel far away from home for this first time in weeks. She's so eloquent in her feelings for you, and you only wish you had words to express yours back to her. You take out a piece of paper several times and begin writing, but each letter sounds more generic and cold than the last. If only you could talk to her just for a bit, seeing her face again would help you get your words out. You fold her letter for now and put it in your back pocket. You take it to class with you the next day. A little piece of Caroline gives you strength, and you find it hard to leave it behind in your room.
Lame.
No way.
After breakfast, you make your way to your first lesson of the day. It's your favorite class and is led by retired Colonel Oliver Beaumont. He is a Yankee from some northern family, but you like him. There is confidence and swagger to the man despite his advanced age. And while his hair is wispy and movements slightly jerky, there is an intensity and life to his eyes that make him seem young in spite of everything else. The class is on military history and with an emphasis on strategy and battle movements. Even without such a good teacher, the material will be engrossing, and you find yourself looking over their notes for the class in your free time simply for fun. Jebus is never as engrossed as you are in the material, and you frequently see him looking out the window or reviewing notes for some of his other classes in the midst of a lecture. Unfortunately for Jeb, Beaumont seems to have noticed this as well. While your brother thumbs through some pages, Beaumont makes his way up behind him and snatches them from his hands and takes them to the front of the class. "Oh, I'm sorry there, son. Didn't realize my class was boring you. You're probably an expert on this after all, with you not needing to even pay attention. Sir, my apologies, sir. I didn't. No. Don't be silly. I'm sorry to you. I didn't mean to be wasting your time. While I have your attention, I thought maybe you could help me out with a bit of a problem I've been having. It is on the Waterloo, and I thought I'd ask you since you're an expert and all." Sir, silence, cadet. Now, Jeb falls silent after the question. You can tell by his wide-eyed look on his face he hasn't the slightest idea on how to respond. Beaumont sits at the front, his smile growing larger with every passing second. This is a particularly tricky question, but having studied as much as you have, you already know it. Now might be a good time to show off your knowledge to Beaumont. He would certainly be impressed with your grasp of material and distinguishing yourself. Now might lead to better things further down the road. Of course, it would mean showing up Jeb and letting him look like a fool in front of your classmates. You could whisper the answer to him instead and help him out of the situation. What do? Well, if I've learned anything, it's not to answer a question that you weren't even asked. So, do we want to whisper it to Jeb and then still fall on the same thing? Because Beaumont's staring at him. So do we really want to whisper it to him? I know we don't need to answer it, but...
Yeah, I think we should help our brother out. He'd help us out.
Let's see what happens. And it impacts the story, of course. You are directly behind Jeb in class, and by sliding forward a bit in your chair, you can obscure your face from Beaumont behind Jeb's frame. You do so, getting in close behind Jeb and begin whispering the answer to him. You're a bit afraid Beaumont might hear you, but he's far enough away that he doesn't seem to, or at the very least, he pretends like he doesn't. Jeb coughs for a moment, helping to cover your voice and stalling for a bit to give you time to get the entire answer out. He follows it up with an exaggerated throat clearing, giving you just enough time to provide him with the information he needs. If you're thinking of faking your death to get out of answering the question, you should know I will follow you to the afterlife until I get a satisfactory answer. Nice. A couple of the other cadets chuckle. Jeb himself lets out an easy laugh. "Sir, no, sir. I have a tickle in my throat, but I am ready to answer, sir." Jeb begins retelling the answer you just gave him. He misses little parts here and there and elaborates and exaggerates a bit where he doesn't need to, but overall he manages to give a satisfactory answer. Mount folds his arms and gives Jeb a slight smile. "Well, don't I look a bit foolish now? Apparently you are paying attention after all." He walks over to Jeb's desk and hands him back the papers he took. "Nicely done, cadet. Now, can anyone else correct the little mistakes this cadet made in his answer?" This is where we should have raised our hand. What the hell? Someone else raises their hand, and Beaumont's attention is drawn to the other end of the class. Jeb turns around and with a relieved look on his face, he doesn't say anything but gives you a big smile and a wink. He mouths the words thanks before turning back around. He might not have been the kind of guy big for big shows of affection, but you could always tell when he was appreciative. See, you know,
Okay.
if it was up to me, I would have raised my hand and gave the right answer at that point when I corrected him. But, you know.
Yeah, well, you didn't.
Now, I feel like this is going to be bad for Jeb because Beaumont's going
They're
to
gonna
actually think
expect
Jeb.
something out of
Yeah,
him.
he's gonna, oh, this guy knows his stuff now. My answer, I'm going to call him all the time
You're
now.
gonna put him on the academic team.
Yeah. Yeah, that's no good.
Yeah.
That's no good.
Alright. That's where we're gonna stop. I have no clue how long this was. It'll be alright. So, thanks if you watched.
Until next time.